Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Growing Together with Don Kinsler, lifelong gardener and the North Dakota State University Horticulturist Extension Office.
Gosh, great to be at your home today.
Well, it's great. We've talked about this before, that we went to Don's home recently. We're here at my house in Moorhead today, and we're going to talk a little bit about the garden, what we've done. Me and my girlfriend Sam, we've been here for about 6 years now, and put a lot of changes into the yard, and so let's take a look around.
Yeah, and one of the things that us gardeners always enjoy doing is seeing what somebody else is doing, because we always get ideas from somebody else.
It is fun to go over. Recently, my neighbor was part of the quilts and garden tour, and it was really fun to go into her backyard and then to go to some of the other quilters' yards and see what they were doing.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see what all we've got.
Yeah, well, here, we'll stay here, where we'll start here, rather. And I should say, when we started here, just in front of us was a big crabapple tree, and it provided great shade, but it was leaning a little bit too much. It wasn't really healthy. So we decided we would have to take that out. So we had a beautiful shade garden here, took that out, and within 2 weeks we realized, well, we no longer have a shade garden. Everything's got to go. We were able to save a couple of the hostas, but the fun thing about this is that it really allowed us to go in and do some different things. And one of the big things we always wanted to do was hanging baskets in front here. These are 2 sections of hanging baskets. The sweet potato vine is a great trailer, and the petunias, the super petunias, is just a great pop of color coming through. We always like that. We try different things, and I think we're pretty well settled that there's some mixture of this, of super petunias and sweet potato vines, is really going to be where we stay.
Yeah, and I noticed you're using the coconut fiber liners.
Yeah.
Aren't those great for hanging baskets
they
now,
are nice.
and for planters and window boxes?
Yeah, and then you can just kind of pull them up at the end of the year. You can dump out the dirt, or if you want to keep the soil in there, you can. We actually keep them up through Christmas. Sometimes we'll put lights in there, maybe some pine cones or something like that.
Yeah, and if anything ever happens to them, if they eventually wear out, but they last quite a few years, you know, you can always just get another one,
yeah,
as opposed to like a wooden window box that eventually you might have to rebuild.
Yeah, and a wooden window box, I would worried here about a lot of just kind of rot, and it be getting too much of the elements here.
Yeah, I like the way that the sweet potato vine cascades over, plus the petunias. That's a good look.
Yeah, they're really living up to the trailer name with that, and the petunias just kind of pop out. You can imagine what the petunias would be like if there were no sweet potato vines. They kind of, sweet potato vines almost kind of suppress everything a little bit.
Yeah, they do, and I'm sure you're probably similar. Once you hit a formula that you like of plants and color, it's hard to change from that, because when you've got a winning formula that you like, I do the same thing. I kind of stick to the things that have done so well for a person.
So Sam's kind of had the vision for this area, and she wanted to do something like a cottage garden. So among the other things, the alliums here, and these are starting to come in right now. In a couple of weeks, these will really be popping, really beautiful. Love the long stems on those and the flowers on top. Of course, like I was saying, we were able to keep a couple of the hostas that did okay in the summer. We've got a daylily here. We've got the daisy. What's the daisy's name? Becky?
Yes, Becky, the Shasta type daisy. Becky with the great big large blossoms.
Yep, just recently planted.
The new one going
that'll
there.
Be a while. We moved a couple of the grasses, the Colonel Foresters in the back, and kind of moved those around a little bit.
Well, you've done a good job of transitioning from total shade to all of a sudden you have sun. Because this is a beautiful area.
Yeah, and so like the Veronicas are really nice. They do well. The peony is relatively new, and false indigo was this not Artemisia, is a
Amorpha, maybe, the false indigo.
Yeah, false indigo. Yeah,
sure.
And this was a fun one we just picked up the other day. We just noticed it was called an obedient plant, and I like the variegated leaves and the name of an obedient plant.
You've got a nice difference of textures.
Yep.
Difference of textures, color shades. You know, the iris with its spear-shaped leaves against the flatter hosta leaves, and so you've got interest going on here.
Yeah, and some of this stuff we had to recently move around and kind of fill in. You know, the other thing gardeners like to do is you like a plant, but maybe it needs to go in a different space and kind of create more area between it. So the iris, I think, will even be more upright next year, hopefully.
You know, you hit on a key point too with perennial gardens. Don't you find too that you can adjust them as need be? And so they're always works in progress, aren't they? There's digging, dividing, moving to find the exact combination.
Well, over here on the other side of the walkway, We've got this big pine tree here, obviously, and as we've talked about before on the show, pine trees are interesting. It's kind of hard to get something to grow under them. You said because the roots are actually so close to the surface that you can't really dig much down.
Right, usually under evergreen trees can be a challenge because, yeah, the roots are fairly shallow and they sap all the moisture and nutrients out of whatever you're trying to grow. So grass doesn't always do well. But I like what you've done here.
With this was one area, obviously we still had a lot of shade, and we were able to take some of the hostas that we had over here that were getting burned after we cut down that tree and put them over here, and really after a couple of years now, 3 years, they've really taken off, and I think that they're looking really
yeah, they are healthy, and your sidewalk kind of curves along, and so the hostas kind of follow a natural curve, and they are happy. Look at the size of those leaves on that kind of bluish green toned hosta, and so a good use of a space that would otherwise be kind of shaded and no color and no pizzazz, and this really worked well. And so a good example of what people can do under evergreens, either whether they be spruce or pines, and I'm sure in this area here you're able to keep it well watered, because that's sometimes a challenge under an evergreen to keep them watered, and you've obviously done a good job.
Down here we're in our backyard. You know, mostly we plant, it's plants back here, plants and flowers, but here in this area where it gets a fair amount of sun still, we're trying some vegetables, and we have two raised beds. We have this kind of an old stock tank, and
nice.
We've got a raised bed that we ordered online. And we've got the peppers are doing well, and some of the tomatoes are doing well, but some of the tomatoes are not doing as well. And I'm always kind of nervous when it comes to watering something like that. I'm afraid I'm going to overwater because we've had blossom end rot, and I wonder now if I'm not watering it enough.
Well, generally the whole thing looks nice. This looks awesome. Look at the lettuce.
Yeah.
And the is that a kale type?
Yep, we got kales there.
And yeah, look at the peppers. So generally this looks awesome. I love the stock tank. That is a great spot to grow vegetables. And everything looks so healthy.
Yeah.
The tomatoes, look at the size of some of the tomatoes on those. Now on one of the tomatoes, there are two. There are some yellowing on there. It feels like you've got your moisture good under control. We kind of felt the soil. That's a good way to kind of do. But a little bit of yellowing is probably them calling for more nutrition.
Okay.
Because in a pot or other container, they're totally dependent on us for their nutrition.
Okay.
And so maybe fertilizing even once a week with a water-soluble type, I think will help green those leaves up.
Yeah, that's great to know.
And that will also help with the size of tomatoes. But like I say, this looks great. And you've also got it situated in a spot that gets good light. Yep. Looks like the opposite corner of the fence probably wouldn't have gotten as good, so the location is great because most of our vegetables want full sun. This looks like a good spot.
So here we're on the south side of the backyard, and one of the first things we did, you know, when we got the house, shortly after that we got a dog, so we had to put up a fence. One of the things we didn't realize about putting up the fence is that immediately it's going to add some shade. So while this area got pretty good afternoon sun before, the shade came in with the fence, so we had to kind of figure out what we wanted to plant. So we've been enjoying kind of using a lot of different things. Again, hostas, bleeding hearts, astilbes, ferns. It's been really nice, but one thing we realized is that, you know, you get to spring and you're so excited to get out in your yard and you see a couple things pop up and you just think like, oh, there's too much space between, so we plopped in a couple things in between. Boy, we've really crowded a little too much in here now.
Well, the plants always look so cute when they're small and young.
Yeah,
it's easy to overplant. We've all done that one. I really like the way that you've designed this in the shaded area at the base of the fence, because I'm noticing the different colors and textures. You know, the bright kind of yellowish green of one of the types of hosta versus the two-tone green and white of another type of hosta. And you've got bleeding heart, which has kind of a fernier texture to it. And do you recall the name of that large leaf green and silver?
This one?
Yeah. Brunera. Brunera. Yep. They're pronounced both ways. That is pretty. Yeah. The size of the leaves almost gives a tropical look. to the assortment.
It's even a different texture. It's like more of a sandpaper texture, so it's really kind of nice to have something in there. But yeah, I mean, when you look out and you can see mostly a certain type of green, and you see these pops of silver in there.
See, and that's what adds such interest to a flower bed. And then also the flatter broad leaves of the hosta, then you have an iris with its spear-shaped leaves coming up out of that. At the base, of course, of the fence where it's shaded, you've got shade-loving things. But higher up on the fence where it gets sun, you've got hanging baskets, and it looks like types that like sun.
Yeah, and that was one thing that we realized is that, yeah, with the way the shade is, you know, at the top of the area, there would still be a fair amount of space for light. So we got these hanging baskets, we've got these arms, and yeah, it's just been really great, because like there again, you walk back here and you look to this area and you've got green mostly on the ground, but then you've got these pops of color above, and it, you know, it helps, as they say, draw the eye up. But it's really nice because it also adds, they're annuals, so you can play with them different from year to year. You can always change them up and do different things.
Yeah, and so you've elevated the growing space just through the use of the arms and hanging baskets on the fence. So
yeah,
good use of a fence to kind of elevate the whole landscape like that. Beautiful space. I bet you really enjoy this backyard.
I do. I really do. And that was kind of the, you know, we were among the people we started before 2020, but in 2020, you know, we thought, look, we're spending a lot of time at home. Let's make this a place where we really enjoy being. Yeah, it's nice to be back here. And it's,
you know, and there's the old saying, good fences make good neighbors, and I'm sure neighbors are beautiful people. But, you know, fences do give a sense of privacy to all of us, and they create and define a space so nicely, too.